not trying to start a war in chat or anything. Arthar said in an interview / podcast with Quazii that he thinks Mythic Plus is harder than Ultimates. Ooh, I have really significant Mythic Plus experience, but I've never done an Ultimate, so I wouldn't be in the position to comment on that yet. But I've played Mythic Plus to a really high level. So as soon as I couldn't compare them. I've never played an Ultimate, so I would not be in a position to compare at all yet. But after doing some Savage, what are your thoughts on such a sentence? I mean, I can't comment on that sentence because I don't think Savage, like me playing Savage Mine is hard, but we're not kind of current raiding. We're doing it for fun. So I wouldn't even say that like my Savage raiding has been like proper Savage on release, because we've been doing it for fun, like I said, and we've been doing it mine, and we have people who have already cleared it before, we have people who haven't, and you know, we have the videos, the guides, and everything like that, so it's not quite the same experience. But if Arthur said it, Arthur has played many Ultimates. I don't know, I mean, he must have played Mythic Plus to a quite high level as well, but if Arthur's is saying Mythic Plus is harder than Ultimate, so that's definitely interesting. That's food for thought. I mean, technically, it's both the same type of content, both PvE, small group working together. If I kind of break it down, I suppose, again, I might be wrong, I've not played an Ultimate, but with an Ultimate, you're kind of learning the fight, you're learning the dance, you're kind of anticipating what's coming, so it's execution. But I feel like with Mythic Plus, it's execution, but there are also so many different things happening, and again, I'm nowhere near in a position to like compare them, so I will definitely do a comparison when I've done an Ultimate. Then I'll be in a position where I can talk on it. But I suppose with an Ultimate, it's the stamina, but a dungeon is like 20 to 40 minutes long. So you don't take breaks when you're in a Mythic Plus. So dungeons 20 to 40 minutes long. So I guess that stamina is still kind of there.
Okaymage Cube love.
Oh, Ravenborn, thank you so much for the 13 months. It's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting to think about. So I guess like, putting it on paper, I can probably understand that statement, maybe. Because in Mythic Plus, you're doing like 50 different things at once. Like, you need to kick that, stop that. You're dealing with loads of different dangerous mobs all in one. I don't know, it's hard. Again, I can't comment at all because I've not done an Ultimate, but I'm trying to see his perspective from what I've seen of Ultimates. That's exactly what he was referring to. It'd be interesting. Does anyone have like a timestamp for that? I want to see what he says about it. That's really interesting. I'd love to listen to that. See what he says about it. But is that what he was referring to? Like in a Mythic Plus? Yeah, that's the only thing that my brain goes to, is that you're juggling so much in one go. And I'm talking about like really high-end Mythic Plus, because everybody plays Mythic Plus, but like a +2 is not comparable to like a +15. +15 is not comparable to like a +28, and like a +30 is not comparable to like any other level. Like, so everybody could have experienced Mythic Plus, but you're just not playing the same game. Depending on like what level you play out, they're just not the same game. Even though it's all Mythic Plus, it's all technically the same thing, but it's not. It's just not. Because I suppose you have that with Ultimates, don't you? You have like, no, I don't know. It's the same content, but sometimes things are like significantly harder. I guess. No, because it's just not even the same game. It's like saying Savage raiding and Ultimates are the same thing. They're both encounters. They're both against a boss. You're in a raid, but they're not the same thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a good comparison. I'm not really too endgamey yet, so I can't comment on too much. Oh, yes. I think this timestamp is roughly accurate. Yes, thank you. No, you lot are so helpful and funny. Yeah, hilarious. Good job. Ultimates have a fixed difficulty. I think the main thing I noticed with Mythic Plus with modifiers can cause a complete different approach. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you're just juggling so much in a Mythic Plus. Like, I think in WoW, I think Mythic Plus is harder than raiding, but sometimes raiding is harder than Mythic Plus because raiding is relying on 20 people to be competent. You're waiting for 19 other people to dodge the swirly. So it can be tedious, it can be difficult. Like Tindril, for example, you need 60, right? Let's say all of your group are amazing, right? But you still need to have 16 people run out and soak a seed, 1 seed, don't double soak, make sure every single seed is taken within like 3 seconds. So like there are definitely some times when it's maybe a little bit more challenging, but in terms of difficulty curve, yeah, it's difficult. You are juggling a lot. I think that's probably where it is. That's probably where his point lies. It's how much you're juggling in a Mythic Plus. You're juggling everyone's cooldowns. You're also juggling all the mobs. They all do different things. They all need different positioning and kicks and that utility and this knockback in this direction. And that person's doing that damage to that mob. There is so much coordination. There's so much going on. There's like 50 things happening in every pack. There is so much, and if like one thing goes wrong, it's kind of over, I suppose. I mean, and also it doesn't just because. So I always say this. I feel like when we're comparing things, sometimes it can be quite difficult because just because something is, let's say, a little bit more challenging or something is sadder, doesn't mean that the original thing isn't sad or isn't as difficult. Like saying. If Arthur's wants to say, for example, that Mythic Plus is slightly harder than Ultimate, that doesn't mean that Ultimates are easy, right? Think about the most pain that you've ever experienced in your life, right? Somebody would have experienced more pain, but just because that other person has experienced more pain or a more painful situation, that doesn't take away from the fact that that is the most pain that you've ever felt. That doesn't take anything away from your pain and your suffering at all. So, you know, we're not saying the ultimates are easy. We're not saying anything about ultimates not being difficult by saying that something might be more of a challenge. So regardless, they are some of the hardest content you can do. I mean, I love Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus is my favorite. Mythic Plus is harder than Ultimates to pug, that's for sure. I mean, look, Mythic Plus is difficult to even get into the group in the first place. So this is... How does it compare to difficulty? So we're talking about Mythic Plus. This is really interesting. Thank you so much for the link. Let's see what Arthur thinks about
yeah, you're not getting it.
Mythic Plus.
So because you just got promoted, bro. You're just now core raider. You need to be like tier 1 core raider. Then you always get PI.
Probably, yeah.
In 1 year's time, you'll get it.
Yeah. But in parts, I'm doing good, you know. But in like
for sure. Dude, I tell you, the biggest thing I realized about like your progress, right, in WoW was like, Season 1, I played with you, right? And then I think in Season 2 or 3, I played with you again. Like, your improvement was so fast.
I love their energy, by the way.
M+, right?
I love this combination already. There's so much energy here. I love it.
Like, to get, like, if you just start M+, to get to a +20 in Parks, right, it takes forever. And I tell you the funniest thing about you, dude. I watched you play Parks, right? Oh my god, you have so much patience, dude. I can't remember this time, right? I see you do the Halls of Valor, and you're playing with 4 Russians. And they do Odin, right? They keep wiping on the rune mechanic. And then you were there for an hour. I think it was you. But I just like, why does this guy not quit? Just leave the party, dude. Like, what's wrong with you?
Perseverance.
But it's like Final Fantasy 14 Parks, right? I mean, why not? I mean, it's already the last boss, really, you know? Why not? I still want the trinket. I forgot what trinket there was. I think it was the...
It's the eye of
beam,
Scova,
right?
I think.
No, not Scova.
Oh, it's a golden trinket.
The golden thingy,
yeah,
right? The shiny thingy, right? Yeah. I wanted that trinket.
I see. But I was like, oh, this guy has a lot of patience. Oh my god. Then
you should see my season 1. You should see my season 1. Oh my god. My season Shadowlands season 1. Dude, I was doing 11 keys. Shadowlands season 1 before I joined the Call Hound. I was doing Park 8 keys, 11 keys. I was doing like 10, 12 hours.
I'm laughing, right? Because the ironic part is that key level is harder to do than a +20. You know why? Because
yes! This is so true. Yes, it is. Because there's chaos. It's chaos, right? People are not pressing any buttons. And it just makes it so much harder. Yes. Yes, it is.
It's the hell tier. It's
The diamond tier.
Is the tier you need
We're
to
putting
get
one mob at a
in order to
time.
meet better players. But yeah, I just realized that you improved a lot. Like you really did. Like it was tremendous. And I think like
it feels good. It feels really good. That's something when I play WoW and I improve, I feel good. When I play WoW in raid, I get into a boss and I do good. I feel really good.
Right.
In Final Fantasy XIV, it's given. Like maybe because I play Final Fantasy
I think
too
that's
much.
because you're a veteran though. I don't know.
Yeah. It was just given. It never felt like it was a challenge. Okay, it was a challenge, but it never felt like it was a challenge that was never surmountable. DSR was actually the first time I actually feel that maybe this is a challenge I cannot surmount. That's why, I mean, honestly speaking, so many statics.
And is it just
like
the DPS
overtime.
check or like
the whole thing?
that? Yeah.
The consistency needed, the mechanics, how precise you need it, and then after that the DPS check. When it first came out. Also, there are some unbalanced things, like Reaper was unbalanced, some tanks were unbalanced, machinists were unbalanced, something like that, you know? So it's like, that's definitely, I mean, in the end, I think they super tuned it, but never felt so tight from the get-go, you know? Yeah, so like, that was actually the first time I felt like it might be impossible, you know, but never thought that we all can raise the level, you know? But like, that is just once in 8 years. You know, for me, playing Shadowlands Season 1 keys, Season 2 a little bit before we...
Hold on, we're talking about keys. They start to compare the Ultimate and the Plus in the previous segment in the video. What do you mean the previous segment? Passing is pointless? WoW gearing and the... Okay, WoW gearing and the Mythic Plus system.
WoW is going the opposite direction where they are starting to realize that this prestige of gearing through the most difficult content is not favorable for growth of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I say this as an MMO zoomer. I do not see gear as a reward. Like, I don't care. Gear is a means to do the content that I want to do. I want to play Mythic Plus. I'm not playing Mythic Plus to get gear. I'm playing Mythic Plus because it's the gameplay that I enjoy. Like, you're playing Apex or League of Legends. There's no, like, long-term game. You're playing them because it's an in-the-moment enjoyment. You're playing the game. And I see Mythic Plus raiding as the challenge and the gameplay. That's what I'm playing it for, right? In my opinion, I know there's repeatable content, but if you're just a raider, if we just put each type of gameplay, let's put it all in its own little box, right? If you're just a raider, which to be honest, for a long time, a lot of people only stayed in their lane, right? Most PvPers are just PvPers. PvEers don't necessarily go over to PvP. You know, you don't have much mixed up. I mean, you do, obviously, but let's just put everything in a separate box, right? If you defeat the final boss of the entire raid tier on the hardest difficulty, it's over. The tier's over. The raid is cleared. It's done. Yeah, you have reclear. Yeah, you have farm. Yeah, you're going to re-kill. But, like, you've killed it. That's what you're doing it for. You're doing it for that. You're doing it for the initial kill. You've done it. So it dropping the best gear to me is like, but I needed this gear to kill the... Like, why do I get this now? Why is this a reward of killing the final thing? To me, that never really made sense. But again, it's probably just because I came to MMOs really late. I missed the whole era where gear was a kind of statement in itself. Like, gear was something to show off. I missed that whole area. So to me, when I see gear, it's just what I need. I just need that to engage in the content that I want to engage in, basically. I don't see it as, like, a prestigious award. I don't actually care. Like, I don't even look at item level, even. I look at experience, because dungeon knowledge, class knowledge, encounter knowledge is going to carry way harder than item level would. Because you're going to know nothing about your spec or your class or the encounter and have a higher item level. And, you know, gear you can get from anywhere. It just doesn't show anything, in my opinion. I kind of agree. But I think you still need long-term goals in MMOs. It's still a good chase to chase gear, for sure. I think that element is important. I just don't think... I think there's different tiers to WoW or MMOs. You have, like, different categories. And if you're doing some of the hardest content, let's say the 0.01% of keys or raiding or whatever, right? you're not engaging in that content because of gear rewards at that point. You're doing it at that level because you are doing it for the challenge. So you're not going to have gear as your reward when you're doing it for the challenge. You know? It's kind of like ultimates in Final Fantasy XIV. I think you do get a weapon, right? Which is technically a 0.1% upgrade or something. But you're doing it for the challenge. You're doing it because it's an ultimate, because it's some of the hardest content you can do, and you get cosmetic rewards as a showcase of your triumph over something so difficult. So if you're doing some of the hardest content, you're doing it for that challenge. And I think putting gear rewards, which you kind of need to engage in that is wrong. One, because you need the gear to compete at that level anyway, but also because then you force people out of their comfort zone. You have so many people who are chasing gear, who are trying to gear ults or trying to gear their mains, like people who have less time or play more casually or whatever the reason is, but they want to gear the characters. So I feel like that's actually a tier below. Like, you don't need to force the, like, for example, in Dragonflight, they upped the end of dungeon rewards from a 15 to a 20. I don't know why you would do that. Like, why are you forcing people to play at a higher level than they're comfortable with because you're tying a gear reward? Like, yeah, that might incentivize people to go higher, but it doesn't. It just puts stress on the player base in all forms, because you have people who don't feel comfortable in that content. But then arguably, maybe it gives somebody, you know, that carrot on the stick, which they need to, like, go up in key levels. But I don't know. I just feel like gear's just different now. Modern day gearing is just not. I wouldn't see someone's trinket and think, wow, I don't know, it's just not impressive. I don't care. I'm like, can you do this key? Yes or no? I don't care. I mean, if there's like a trinket that's really crucial for a spec and that spec does not function without the trinket, yeah, you might look at the trinket and care, but you still don't care about the trinket itself. You're not going to look at the trinket and go, wow, this player is so good because they have that trinket. Like, no. You know what I mean? So yes, gear is important to chase, but just don't tie the gear reward to like that very small smidgen of the 0.1%, let's say, where people are just doing that for challenge.
Which is bad.
Yeah.
Which is bad, by the way. This Dragonfly, right? First season is okay.
Yeah.
Second season, they fuck up.
Yeah.
Really, really
Fair
bad.
enough.
They make gearing too easy. You literally, if you gear properly for 3 weeks,
Yeah, you're done.
you are done.
Yeah,
You're
really,
447.
you're really done. Yeah, you're done.
It was just why you need a healthy balance, because most people need that incentive. A lot of people need that gear incentive to play. People like that chase, which is why gearing is important. Sure. That's why the tier system makes sense. It's not necessarily the gear that's an issue or chasing gear. Just don't force people to do the hardest content to get gear. Make gear, say, drop less accessible, but just stop putting it in the challenging content. That's all I'm saying.
So I think
Put
season 2 becomes
cosmetics
too easy.
there.
Now season 3, they make it slightly harder. But even season 3 have the same problem. Because now when you do your Mythic Plus, right? You open your 489.
Yeah.
Right? When you go and do Mythic Raid, I can tell you, aside from Farak,
Yeah.
the Trinket, the Augury, everything is 489.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly.
So nowadays, my guild start asking, wait, what can we get out of our
what's the
retreat?
point?
Why
Yeah.
don't we why
What's
don't
the
we
point?
just kill Farak and sell
Exactly.
Farak? I'm like, true, you know? I mean, I need peeps, okay? But it's like actually kind of true, you know? I think that WoW is going to, hopefully WoW don't continue making this mistake that 14 is making. Hopefully they identify and fix it, because season 1 was perfect. I think season 1 was perfect. Dragonflight season 1 was perfect. But the system overall is really good. The upgrade system is perfect.
Yeah.
And also the mid-core part. I personally think Mythic Plus is literally the best mid-core, or even to some people like you, or even people like, you know, those Echo, Gingy pushing 28, 29 keys, consider hardcore. Because for me, right, going to get plus 20, I think is mid-core. And I don't think it's unrealistic, right? It's just gearing, right? It's progressive, right? And I enjoyed it, you know?
I 100%
And you can get
agree.
endgame gear.
I 100% agree. I think like that part of WoW, right? Like actually to me it's more enjoyable than raiding already. Like
Unreplaceable.
like,
I agree with you.
I used to raid, only raid. And then like when M Plus came out in Legion, it was like a game changer. Like it was like,
Yes.
wait, shit, this is more fun than raiding. And I don't know, I
Yes.
cannot explain why. I think it's like, Because raiding, right, you should have got some asshole in the raid you don't like, or like you know, like this guy's a douchebag or whatever. You just don't want to play the person, right? Like there's a lot of reasons why you don't like people in a massive group. But I feel like M+ is a small group. It's potentially with your friends, and the idea that it's repeatable, yet the challenge increases infinitely.
Yeah.
It's actually a very elegant way. And Blizzard is quite smart because technically, right, it's the same map. And then they just scale the coefficient, the numbers higher. Like, it's not a very
And then also you add the Raider IO score. Because, I mean, that was the incentive for me. I wanted the points to be as high as possible. I was looking at leaderboards. I liked the competition of it. I loved it.
Very costly thing to develop. In fact, they keep releasing old maps nowadays. Yeah.
And you got 8 dungeons.
Yeah. And now they keep
It's
releasing
crazy.
old maps.
I would chase Raider IO score for 16 hours a day and it was healthy. No, but that was it. That was part of it. I loved like trying to squeeze out more score, push things higher, try and find that key that was an upgrade, and that chase.
Yeah, that is really good. And you don't have to make new things. You really don't have to make new things. You just have to elevate some old things. It's like Final Fantasy, okay, like Final Fantasy 16 versus Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I honestly think Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth is easier to make than Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 16.
For sure.
You don't have to came out with
you don't need
set
a
of
lot,
characters.
all this done already, yeah.
Exactly. It's
you know
all
how
done
they look
already,
like Tifa is going to look like Tifa, yeah.
Wait, I
Exactly,
just wanted to make sure
So I
we're
do
still in the
think,
same section.
M+ is just awesome, man. Like every time I do M+, I'm never bored. I'm only bored when it becomes to the point of, do I really need gear anymore? No, right? But I think when you try to get 4-8, at least at the beginning season.
Yeah, I never did Mythic Plus for gear. This is the exact thing, right? Never did it for gear incentive. And I feel like if you're doing it for gear incentive, that can almost make it feel worse. Because if you hate dungeons or you hate Mythic Plus, you're kind of forced to do it. It makes you hate it even more. But I never did. But obviously you do Mythic Plus to get gear, especially early on. So I'm not saying, oh, you never do it to get gear. You do. But like, I just really enjoyed playing Mythic Plus. So like, gear was a side thing. You know what I mean?
Then like this season, you want to try to get 4-8-1 or 8-3.
Yeah.
I do think that part is the most fun. Like the week 1, I shit
Start
you not.
every season is always.
Week this season 3 week 1, because this season 3 I want to squeeze into my Mythic roster to raid. Because season 2 I didn't have time because of
You're doing Ultimate, right?
No, Anabas Savage came out. So I couldn't proc Everest. Right. So this time I was like super on the edge. I super try hard. Dude, week 1, I think I did 100 keys.
Holy shit, you did more than me, dude.
That was
week
me.
1, I did 100 keys.
What the hell are you trying to
That
farm?
was me.
From gear. And I got the
Holy
gear. But
dude.
Unholy DK is dog shit.
Oh yeah, dude, you suck in M+ anyway. What's the point of playing that in M+, dude?
Dude.
Like, I saw you roll
tried
a
so hard,
hunter,
man.
and I was like, this guy
I roll a
finally
hunter.
gets it. Finally understands. M+ is
Oh,
all
my
Oh,
about
the
God.
meta
The moment I
despair.
play a hunter, I was like, wow, things changed. The moment
Yeah, I
play a
mean, Mulk, you were very vocal about how you didn't enjoy Mythic Plus, which always surprised me because you've always engaged in like the hardest content, right? Especially in Final Fantasy 14, you play at like the highest levels. So that always surprised me that like, why did you not like Mythic Plus? But that's why I always say to people, depending on what level you play at, it's a completely different game. It can be also, even if you play at the same level, right? You're comparing the same level. It can be so miserable at times. So miserable. Trying to get a weekly done, for example, can be miserable. If you can even get into a group, you spend like 20 minutes talking about the route and then you die at the first pack and then you don't get into groups again for like another 4 hours. Like, it's total despair. It definitely has its ups and its downs. But when you actually play the dungeon, you're playing at that high level. It's just great. And when you're cooking up routes and you see what stuns, what you've got, and you're working, it's just so good. Like, that side of it is worth it. If you ever, not many people see that side of Mythic Plus. That's what's such a shame. I'd probably say that like 1% of people see Mythic Plus like properly, I would say, which is a shame because it's worth it. It's so good. Makes me miss it. I want to play WoW now. My character is so behind though. Like, Mythic Plus is honestly some of the best content. I do miss it.
Hunter might really start telling me, okay, I need you to prepare. You might come in. And then the moment I get to Farrak, he's like, okay, we are already holiday season. We might be short-handed. I need you to come in. And then the moment I go in, I nailed it. And then he's like, wow, you really prove yourself to be a raider. I'm like, okay, to be honest, right? I never really tell my guild who I am. None of my guildie actually know who I am. They don't know I'm a streamer. They don't know I'm a Final Fantasy. So I'm just like a very random guy.
It's undercover! Yes!
you know,
Right.
like lurking in the guild, you know. So then they're like, oh, you can raid. I want you moving forward. I need you to like play one, needs to play like the meta. You see, now you play Hunter, you get in, you perform. Now you are I just got after 3 seasons, I finally got promoted from trial to a raider now in my
Congrats,
guild.
dude.
Yay!
Oh, congrats.
And then they're like, oh, you can raid. I'm like, dude, I'm an ultimate raider in Final Fantasy 14. You know what I mean?
Fair
But you know, it still feels good, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
finally got it. But my God, man, trying to squeeze in the Mythic roster, I don't even think I have any problem finding an ultimate group, you know, but squeezing a Mythic roster, doing all the M+, because M+ makes you better.
Yeah.
My friend,
It does.
do you know Dyrus?
It does.
League of
Cyrus,
Legends.
He used to play League, yeah.
So Dyrus was playing Dragonflight Season 1 a lot doing
Oh, I
keys.
didn't
So
know.
sometimes he played a lot.
He used to play WoW, but then I think I guess he also stopped and then he used to play 14 also, no?
Yes. So Season 1, I see him in friendlies. I always like, yo, can you invite me to keys? Then he's like, oh, you know, I'm a cutie pie. Hey, I'm a cutie pie, always play, right? And then the both of them play warrior, you know. So both of them are challenging like locks, you know.
Right.
So like, oh no, I need to do it cutie to get better locks. Then he, oh my God, that's so try hard, you know.
Right.
So then he was telling me, I love M+. When I play M+, all these min-maxing, all these like the smallest little micro management, right? How to do the dungeon, how to silence things, how to pull things.
Yeah.
Actually make him a better playing another game. And I agree. Whenever I play Mythic Plus, right, I go and play Final Fantasy, right, it feels like
There's so many things you're managing.
Very easy.
And then it's like, even if you're on a Sanguine week, for example, it's like watching to be like, okay, that mob is really low HP. I know that those mobs have like really high HP. Like there are so many micro decisions. Like I have a knockback, I don't need it because that mob has already done its stun. It's already stunned. It's already been interrupted. Like there are so many micro decisions. There are so many things happening at the same time. It is honestly so good. Like it tickles anyone's competitive, challenging content for sure. But there are so many things happening, so many micro decisions in the moment. There's nothing like it really. I haven't played Ultimates yet, but
every time doing a Mythic Plus is like doing an Ultimate. I'm like sweating here, super focused. And then when I play with you, you're like, oh, your turn to silent. Oh wow, thanks a lot, man. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. I don't even know how the fuck you do it. Really crazy. Crazy seeing somehow some of you do Mythic Plus. I don't
think
understand.
It's the same as me seeing you do Ultimates. The fact that you can talk to chat, rant, and still do perfect rotation, right? Like it's also the same kind of appreciation.
I didn't do my rotation perfect, but I used to do that in Mythic Plus.
You play
because my group don't take anything serious. We'll be doing like
Mythic Plus is harder.
rank 1.
I think Mythic Plus is harder.
Oh, here we go.
You get there.
We do like rank 1 keys. And we'd all just be laughing and joking and not really paying attention. But some people can do that though. Whereas other people need to concentrate, which is fine. We're all different. Doesn't mean you're of any better or less skill. But me and my group were always like that, just memeing. No one wanted to play with us because we were just like, meh. We played perfect, but still nobody liked it.
No. I think Mythic Plus is harder. I think Mythic Plus is harder. I think Mythic Plus is harder. I think the the different pools, managing your CD, managing your personals as well, I think is way harder.
I think that's
but if you play with...
I think actually that's the best part of Mythic Plus because like there's always that optimization, that additional minute you can squeeze from doing some crazy shit. Like look at MDIs, right? Like the fact they cook some insane strats. It's like there's always that level that you can bring that is above what your current performance is. And
those things, right, in Final Fantasy 14, right, done it. Now, I'm not saying that if Final Fantasy 14 has those type of things, those type of, that one more level of, you know, playing the game a different way, then I'm pretty sure 14 players can do it. But because 14 doesn't have that, so there is always this gap, right, where you are a WoW player, you can never achieve. Like, you can never play like Jinji. You can never play like them. It is impossible. It is literally impossible. The way they push keys, the way they come in
insane.
It's impossible. You can never play like Echo. You can never play like Liquid. You can never play like the MDI teams. You know,
they are ridiculously good.
When you play World of Warcraft, you see that there's this level you can like Ultimate. I don't think so. Like maybe you see me proc, you can't do it. But if you put it enough time, you can clear an Ultimate because Ultimate don't have that uncharted difficulty, that competitiveness. Nothing. Don't have.
So I guess what Arthur is saying is that because Ultimates, let's say most raid encounters in general, let's just talk generally, because it's kind of set in what you have to do, if you just keep throwing yourself at it or you spend enough time, you're eventually going to learn the fight, right? You're eventually going to know how to do it because it is reactive, but it's more like learning the dance. And if you put enough time into it, you will learn that dance, whether it takes you a week or a year or 5 years. You will learn it because it's kind of the same thing every time. And it's not scaling, let's say.
I think like, yes, I can get by. Eventually with time, I can clear. But to pass at your level, I don't know.
I'm a shitty passer.
Oh, really? I don't know. I don't see your passes. I always
pass.
assume you're 100% out.
No.
But that's how you know that they're a good player, right? This is a good player. Somebody who says this. Because that is the most important thing, right? That you kill the boss. So this is how you know Arthur's is genuinely freaking insanely good at the game.
Oh, really? I don't know. I don't see your passes. I always assume you're 100% out.
And it's so different in 14 as well.
I don't pass. This game doesn't. This game, you are literally pressing the same button. I never check FF logs in my life. People uploading, I check.
You know, it's different. It's just totally different in 14 in comparison to WoW. Totally different. Two completely different games. So like in Final Fantasy 14, it's mostly important that you like kill the boss. And while that is important in WoW, I don't know. It's different. It's hard to explain because I haven't really Savage raided much.
FF logs is a fucking debate. People who are good at, okay, 9 out of 10
because you can be good at logging and you can be good at killing a boss. You can be a good raider, you can be good at logging, but they're kind of two separate things in a way. That's from what I've picked up with 14. You can be a good logger, good passer, but it doesn't make you a good player. That's generally what I learn from 14 especially. They're two different things.
Logs are not good at Final Fantasy 14.
Are you serious? Okay.
I'm serious. Even the 100 percentile player in Final Fantasy 14 might not be the best player in Final Fantasy.
That's a hot
I'm serious.
Explain why.
Yeah. In fact, my logic, the way I do is I always try to not pass. And also I try to always. I mean, I'm not purposely play like shit, but I just know every job I press the same button. There's no variance. Okay. And when I go and logs and compare, you know, like you're a WoW player, you know, right? You go and compare people logs. When I compare, my rotation is not any different. The only difference is RDPS and the difference is crit.
Right.
So I don't have to chase that. Right. My button is already, I'm already pressing the rotation, like you say, you know, doing an ultimate 18 minutes. I'm already pressing the correct buttons already.
Yeah, see, that's the difference in WoW, right? With the logs, it's usually like you're pressing the buttons wrong. That's why you're not logging right. But it seems like it's different in 14.
Nothing for me to change. But when I play World of Warcraft, I'm telling you, every week I'm looking at people's rotation.
Yes.
I'm actually analyzing.
You have to do so much research because things change all the time.
And I still cannot get damage, man. I don't know how WoW players do damage. It's insane.
So much time, research, and effort has to go into it. Like, if you are logging really high in WoW, you're probably one of the best of that class. Like, it's just different. It's so different. It holds a lot more weight, but at the same time, there are still people who use logs negatively. Like, you still shouldn't play for logs, and people don't. But I'm just saying, when you see somebody who has, like, really high logs, sometimes you can dismiss it and go, yeah, but their guild just cheesed this or cheesed that, or this guild had really good DPS, so the boss died really quickly, which meant everybody got a good log. Like, it's not... There's no statement term that's going to apply to every single situation. We're just talking generically, you know what I mean? So there are definitely times when it doesn't mean everything. Nothing means everything. But generally, when you look at a WoW player's log page, that's kind of an indication of how good they are, generally speaking. All right? But you can get people even in WoW who are just like selfish log cores. And that is a negative player. Like, they will not be helpful. They'll be very selfish. And, like, that's the toxic mentality. It's the toxic, like, ego-y. And that can be negative for your raid team, for sure. Like, you want team players, for a start. And you also want people that are playing for the kill and not their log, especially in progress. Like, progress mythic logs are more of an indication of that player. Like, when you apply to mythic guilds, they'll look at how many times you died. They don't care about the shiny number on the front of your profile. They'll look at logs correctly. But what I am saying is that generally, if you see somebody with really good logs, they can at least play their class. Like, they actually, that is an indication of that they can actually play their class well. That's what I'm saying. Wait, Arthur's just tweeted me. I've been caught! I've been caught! Ah! forgetting about stuff like this. Oh.
Now, buffs is a thing. I think that I'm not
you
very
don't
good
get
at.
PI, bro. Like that's the problem. Like you're not getting PI.
PI and augmentation buff.
Nah, yeah, you're not getting.
Yeah, so this is the other thing with logs now. There are so many external buffs which are PI from a priest, increases your haste for however many seconds. That can scale crazy with the DPS, especially if they're in their damage cooldowns, especially if they're a burst damage profile spec. If they're in a damage phase, they're a burst spec, you can give them a buff during that 10-second window, they're going to do like way more damage. So we have augmentation evoker as well. I always had that kind of, I mean, I played all 3 mage specs no matter how, no, you know what, I had a lead trick, but I do play all 3 mage specs. But Frost in particular, I mean, yeah, I mean, give me buffs, but Frost doesn't necessarily need the buffs. Like, you're not going to feel the lack of those buffs as much as you will with other specs. So I've had the luxury of not caring, and like my pass or my performance is based on like how I actually play, and I'm lucky for that. But I can't imagine like how frustrating it is that like there are so many of these external buffs. Like, that doesn't mean to say that you're not going to pass well, right? You can still get 99s, you just need to press your rotation correctly, which is a lot. It's asking a lot. But yeah, we're talking about like world rankings, like rank 1s or whatever. Like, that's going to be challenging for these freaking external buffs, and that's very frustrating.
Yeah. So
because
right
you just
now,
got promoted, bro. You're just now core raider. You need to be like tier 1 core raider, then you always get PI.
Just be the best
yeah.
DPS on the raid team and make demands and
But
hold
in
your
past, I'm
guild
doing good,
hostage.
but in like
Oh, for
grade,
sure. Dude, I
in
tell you,
grade
the
comp,
biggest thing I
I'm not
realized
doing
about
good, yeah.
like your progress, right, in WoW was like, season 1 I played with you, right? And then I think in season 2 or 3 I played with you again. Like your improvement was so fast.
So I think when Arthur's is saying, for example, the Ultimate or Mythic Plus is slightly harder than Ultimates, I do think it's because Mythic Plus does scale. So, you know, you can throw yourself in an Ultimate fight, you can pull over and over again, you can throw loads of time at it, and it'll be kind of the same thing every time. Whereas Mythic Plus, even though it's the same map, let's say, even though it's the same mobs, it's not really the same thing every time. Because there's so much happening. And it changes. Like, that mob's cast on a lower level might not kill you, but on a high enough level, you cannot let that cast go through. But there are also like 50 different things happening as well. And there's this mob that needs to be nuked down, but then that mob over there that needs to make sure that it's CC'd because we already have this mob in that interacts with that. Like, there's just so much happening, so much. This was a really interesting conversation though. Really interesting. I'm glad that we looked at that. It'll be good to be in a position where I can comment on things like this once I've done an ultimate. I feel like I'll be in a better position to say like my experience, because I'm only like a high-end WoW player. I'm not a high-end 14 player yet. But yeah, I can't really give my 2 cents on it. I can only speak kind of vaguely. I think Arthur's also biased in like he's already one of the best 14 players. Of course, it's easy for him. But I think that's the thing, right? You don't have scaling content in 14. So even if you're the best players in WoW, it's scaling content. So it's even if you're the best, it still provides a challenge because it keeps scaling and it keeps getting harder and harder and harder. Does that make sense? Whereas there isn't as much scaling content that kind of keeps you training, keeps you fighting, keeps challenging you, I suppose. Does that make sense? Until there's like new content, I suppose. If there's a new ultimate that provides a new challenge. I think they mean that Final Fantasy is easy for him because he's played it for so long compared to other games. I know what he meant, but I still stand by the same statement. Does what I said not make sense? Like, you could be the best player in the world at WoW, but because it's scaling content, it's going to still provide a challenge because it's scaling content. Does that make sense? Whereas Final Fantasy XIV is not scaling content. So you get to a point where you're not being pushed or you're not being challenged. But that, again, we're not saying that that doesn't make it hard. Nothing we're saying does not take anything away from Ultimates being hard and some of the most challenging content that MMOs have to offer. Doesn't take anything away from that. Scaling content means there's always difficulty you cannot overcome, so it's understandable. Yeah. Is there a key limit? Is there a limit to how high a key can go? No, only... I mean, you're going to get to a key level where... like, the numbers are just too high. You can't kill something in time because you don't do enough damage, or you can't survive something. But, I mean, people keep squeezing out key levels. But, yeah, I suppose you do get to a point where it isn't possible. But people still squeeze. You know what I mean? Do you think Scaly's content would be good for 14? I mean, yeah, I feel like any, what would you call it? Evergreen content, repeatable content. Repeatable content is always good. Like, I love Mythic Plus to see something like that be added to Final Fantasy 14. Not Mythic Plus specifically, but like some kind of, let's say some kind of system in 14 that had that replayability. I don't think that would be a bad thing. Like repeatable content that constantly challenges you and kind of scales. I don't think that's ever going to be a negative because it's a big time sink. Like people want to keep pushing, people want to keep going, trying to push higher and higher. And there's not really a limit. So it keeps people engaged. There's always a new key level to push to, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying we should bring Mythic Plus to Final Fantasy 14. I'm saying that like some kind of repeatable content might be good. I mean, I wouldn't say no. And if you had that kind of repeatable content, maybe outside of like in the downtime in patches, it gives people like kind of an endless thing to keep playing. Hard content is fine, but scaling is just a cheap way to make hard content. Do you think so? I don't know. I love Mythic Plus. I feel like that's quite, not cynical, but I do really enjoy Mythic Plus. I do really enjoy it. I love trying to see how high we can push the keys and planning the routes. And like when things get really hard, something looks impossible. And then you're like, okay, if we move our cooldowns here and I just love that. It adds a challenge. You know what I mean? Cheap or not, as long as it's fun, it's fine. Yeah, like I do find Myth Plus really fun, really fun. I wouldn't say that it's cheap. I don't think it's a cheap way to make hard content. I think it's just it creates hard content because it's scalable. But I mean, you could have been burned by like companies. You could have been burned by games, which is why you have that less trusting or that perspective. So I totally understand it. I mean, you're not wrong. Like some people might think that it's just not fun and cheap. I love it. Just because it's easy to create doesn't diminish the enjoyment. Well, I wouldn't even say it's easy to create. I feel like Mythic Plus is a headache for Blizzard with balancing. Jeez, I feel like it causes so much. It's definitely not cheap and easy. It causes such a headache with the scaling, balancing. It's balance hell, yeah. You're absolutely burnt to a crisp by Blizzard. No, you know what, right, Taurus? It makes sense. I understand. I totally understand where you're coming from. But I think if Final Fantasy 14 added, not Mythic Plus, but added some kind of like, what do you have? You have something in Final Fantasy 14. Is it Palace of the Dead? I've not unlocked it yet, but you do have something similar in terms of like, it was what Torghast was based off of, right? So, I mean, is it infinite scaling? Or deep dungeons? I haven't looked at deep dungeons yet. Yeah, but it's not infinite. So like you have content in the game that there's a set amount of floors. Okay, so if they change like Palace of the Dead to be like infinite floors, let's say, and like you had to try and get as far as you could, like that's content that you already have, but it doesn't add a cap on it. Like you can still like try and push as high as you can. It's not infinite, but soloing it is pretty much out of reach for like 99% of the player base. But what if it wasn't? Oh, is it solo? Is it a solo player? I don't know anything about it. I haven't unlocked it yet. But it can be. Okay, so like that's content that you already have in the game. And if you added, say, like an infinite scaling to Palace of the Dead, like maybe that would incentivize people to like see how high they can go, and then you have to work with your team, or if it's solo content, like see what you can do. But like I said, it doesn't have to be Mythic Plus. Like you could just add like infinite scaling to content you already have, or create something new, because I feel like Mythic Plus has a lot of like negativity, toxic connotations to it, and lots of negativity. So I don't know, I suppose I wouldn't want to like bring that over, because then you're essentially saying, oh, we're going to bring all this negativity and drama and problems. But I don't think so. Solo Palace of the Dead title is still one of the hardest titles you can get in games, if not the hardest. So the Solo Palace of the Dead, is that Necromancer? Because a couple of you are mentioning Necromancer. Something like 0.5% of the player base has the title for soloing Palace of the Dead. It might as well be infinite scaling already. It's the average for Final Fantasy 14 player. Wow, okay. So I don't know anything about Palace of the Dead because I haven't unlocked it yet. So we don't know too much about it. Oh, look at everybody hanging out on the OCE server. Wait, we've been left alone with our thoughts this whole time. My Necromancer run was my favorite bit of content. Maybe we'll try. That'll be like a big time sink. Oh, look at everyone hanging out. This is so nice. Isn't Mythic Plus a huge part of gearing in WoW? Any system like that in 14 would have to include a gearing rework, in my opinion. So Mythic Plus, yes, you can get gear. Yes, you can. You can get gear from Mythic Plus. Most people do get gear from Mythic Plus, yes. I would answer yes, but also at the same time, if you're playing, like I said, if you're playing to the highest, like most difficult content, you're not necessarily doing it for gear, you're doing it for the challenge. So depending on like where you're playing it and your focus, like yes, it's a very good source of gear, but also like if you're pushing Mythic Plus the highest level, you're not doing it for the gear. Does that make sense? You're doing it for the challenge, let's say.